Hello and welcome everyone to my highly irregular series of videos dedicated to World of Tanks console. Today we're looking at a battle in Himmelsdorf at night. It's a standard battle, no encounters here, and we're in T110E5, a American Tier 10 heavy. Now this is right after I have successfully 3-marked this tank. I would like to thank all the American drivers that rolled out their E5s for lowering the 3 marks a little bit. But it is me and a platoon of a bunch of Redditors, and shout out to them. And as you can see, the game just starts off this regularly. Everyone rolls either to the castle or to either the 7 line, which I call the Himmelsdorf banana because it's kind of is curved like a banana. And some tanks decided to go to the rails. Now normally I never go to the rails unless there's some sort of emergency, but in this case you can see me kind of changing my mind about going to the castle. I've noticed that we have a lot of guys going to the castle, and I felt like a banana would be a better spot for me because I was afraid of being overwhelmed, of our forces being overwhelmed on that particular direction. And there have been a lot of games where I have lost on this map in particular because of the banana being pushed. So I kind of check out, I bail from castle. I decided to check out the banana in the situation. As you can see, there's a pattern, there's a FV183, and there's an E5 that is side scraping quite effectively. And so I'm just trying to do my part, my contribution in holding down this particular direction. I put a shot into pattern, and I put another shot into pattern again. And you can see the enemy E5 is side scraping really carefully, just kind of hiding his hatch. And I'm also trying to roll back and not get hit by the Death Star. So the enemy E5, credit to him, is doing quite well in terms of baiting our shots while presenting very little targets for us to do. And I have resorted to actually firing heat at his hatch just to make sure that I pan what little chances I get. So we're kind of on a stalemate. I can see that there's a few, just looking at the minimap, I can see there's a few tanks on the 1-2 line, on the rail line, but they don't seem to be actively engaging us. We seem to be holding down the fort on the 7 line, and the castle is also actively being engaged. It is at this point I think every tanker should always be looking at the minimap and kind of gauging the situation, reading the situation, and seeing where they're needed. At this point, my platoon mates tell me that we are losing castle and that things are not looking good. I can also see that there's an E5 pushing our 1 line, our A2 quadrant. And he's likely to kill our arty. So I decide to bail on the banana. Seems we're doing okay there. And I decide to kind of help our guys on the rear so that we don't get flanked from every direction. This is one of those decisions that you kind of have to make on the fly, just based on the situation and the situational awareness. You can see we catch this T57 heavy who is relocating. He pays us no mind, for better or for worse. I decide to chase him down because I see that we're definitely losing castle. So I decided to do what I can to, equalize the odds here. We can see that the heavy is paying us no mind. Finally, he pays attention after second round. He puts a shot into our tracks, so we're into ground. And we remember, because we damaged his engine earlier on as he was driving by us, and we put another shot directly into his engine and set him on fire. I was hoping he was going to burn out, but he didn't, so I had to finish him off. At this point, we see the castle completely lost. We have an E5 facing our T95. And shout out to our T95 driver. He's going to come up again in this gameplay. He was doing an awesome job holding down the fort. And just again, looking back at the big situation, at the big picture, we have a few tanks here in the cap area. We have completely lost the banana. We have enemy tanks rolling down the hill. And we have the guys that have successfully pushed the banana. They're going towards the enemy cap. So I decide the only reasonable solution for me is to defend our cap and give our team the chance to capture the enemy base. So you can see we are engaging a full health T57, shooting his cheeks, and as everyone knows, T57's cheeks are his weakest point, and they're always going to be exposed if he's looking at you, so feel free to just wail on him, and usually you're not gonna bounce from them. They're a pretty reliable weak spot on both sides of the turret. So at this point, again, these things are looking up. We have cleaned up a few tanks in their base. We do see that T-57 Heavy started retreating. He apparently, obviously, he felt intimidated by my presence, and he felt the pain taking a shot from T-95. So things are definitely looking up. We're filling up the capture bar. We have a few enemies, and in fact, this is actually what happens. The crucial thing, I was hoping that all of our teams will commit to capturing at least 3 of them, and we get capture going. But it turns out only one of our tanks actually stayed on cap. The rest of our team turned around and went to engage the enemies that came down from the castle, which is again is a problem. So at this point, I'm just trying to do what I can, to chase down the T-57 Heavy that drove away from our cap. T-57 Heavy is clearly trying to clean up the rest of our team. I see a full health Death Star. He's clearly attacking to take a shot at me, but because of the elevation, he cannot get me, and I cannot get him, so I decide to just ignore him. And at this point, we see the teams are pretty even. We have a Jaggeru, we have a T-10, and they have 2 heavies, Death Star and Arty. At this point, I see the remaining E5, and I see remaining Panzer 7, and I just start shooting heat at them. Normally, I would try to kind of not be so liberal with heat, but because we're short on time, because we have a critical situation, we have to do the best, and we have to maximize our DPM. And we can also see that our T-95 is really holding down the spot. He's putting some crucial shots into the E5. He's also putting shots into Panzer 7, or at least he made the Panzer 7 move. I'm trying to see if I can shoot through the window, but at the same time I noticed that the Death Star was able to snap our T-10, who went a little bit too far into the field, and Death Star was able to nail him from that height. So I decided to kind of really make a run for it, get away from the Death Star, but being able to engage the remaining forces. At this point, I'm between trying to wiggle my turret, trying to make my commander's hatch as hard of a target to hit as possible, even though it's still pretty thick, but the thickness has been reduced. The area where it is 250 millimeters has been reduced, so it's definitely an easier target to pen. I'm shooting Panzer 7 into its sides, right under the turret. And we can see again T-95, T-95 driver really pulling his weight, putting some crucial clutch shots into tanks that otherwise I would have struggled maybe a little bit more. I can see that again, our Waffle has no shot on me, so I try to engage their enemy E5, and unfortunately my T-95 friend has been taken down by the Waffle. At this point I tried to again engage the E5, kill it. I don't know what he was doing. He drove away, turned his back to me, so that was an easy kill. And at this point we clearly have almost full health Jaggeru, but half health Jaggeru, and me at almost full health. And I decided that the best choice of course of action at this point, of course, is to attempt to cap, attempt to get the win, just in case the Jaggeru holds them over at castle long enough for me to be able to cap out. So I choose my position based on where the enemies are, on the relative location, so they don't have any shots on me, and they would have to really drive in front of me in order to be able to damage me and reset the cap. So here we are, capping. We're alone against Anari and Death Star. We know exactly where they were. We know they killed our Jaggeru, who spent most of the game kind of driving around, and I know he drove up to the castle for no reason. I don't really know why, because he doesn't have the gun diversion to engage them. So he should have probably stayed with me. But at this point, I see my friendly kind of pinging a map, see if he can get a few shots on them approaching. So I tried to take an angle where I can minimize my surface, but still take a shot on whatever's coming down the mountain. I have heat loaded, and at this moment the RD shows up. I low roll him, but at the same time I was able to set him on fire, so that was really, really, really lucky for me. So RNG give and RNG takes away. And at this point, the only thing I have to worry about is a half health Jagger, and with about 25 seconds to go, I'm really hoping that he's slow enough to not get to this location. But at the same time, I also am trying to kind of intercept him and put around into his tracks so that he doesn't have the time to shoot me, because as remember, your presence in the cap doesn't change much. You absolutely have to do damage. And as you can see, he was able to, just in the last microsecond, to put damage into me. He bounced the first shot. I wasn't able to damage him, but he bounces too many shots, and this is basically the end at this point. So I think if he wasn't driving at such high speed and he took his time to aim, he would have clipped me out. But because he was driving at such high speed, he wasn't able to turn in tight enough radius to get his turn on me. So he bounced the first shot, he made the other two shots count, but he was too late, and then he bounced the next two shots. And here we are. We come to the end of the game where we made some good decisions. Again, most of this game is minimizing your risks in the early game, and I think that's what really it's all about. It's kind of keeping yourself alive, because remember, you as a tanker have to be the better tanker. You have to be taking less risks, maximizing your damage output, and stay in a good position. I think that's what it's all about. And also keeping an eye out on the bigger picture. You are only in control of one tank, so you have to kind of not only just to predict the enemy movements, but also react to their movements. Because at the same time, like, this game is more reactionary than it is proactive. Yes, you can proactively take a good position. Yes, you can proactively move to a good position, but it's how you react to enemy positions and how you react to enemy actions that makes you a better tanker. Looking at the end screen here, we did quite a lot of damage, 8,400 damage. Obviously, Ace Mastery tanker. We've done a bunch of points for the completion. We've confirmed our 3-mark status. We didn't do much of assistant damage, mainly because we were not really, our team wasn't really relying on us to spot. We also see that our team didn't have that much good of a game. The enemy team, however, did quite have a good time. I just highlight the T110E5 driver, who did amazingly, had some clutch shots that really helped the outcome of this battle. You see the enemy team had a ton of well-performing tankers. The Waffle had an awesome time. Their T57 had an awesome time as well. Their E5s, both of them had a pretty decent game until, of course, they met us. So what does this mean in the overall bigger picture of this game? I think, again, if you're trying to get better, you have to be more conservative in the early game, really focus on your positioning, trying to kind of see where you're going, what your position is, and how safe you are in there. Because as a good tanker, you're not supposed to be taking early game damage. You're supposed to kind of dish out as much damage as possible, see what their enemies are, see where the enemies could be, and make your decisions in the mid-game, and do most of your damage mid-game to late-game, because that's where it actually matters, and you're supposed to conserve your hit points. So here we are. We have a beautiful E5 3-marked with a Canadian flag. It was quite an awesome time 3-marking this beast. I hope you guys found this video entertaining and interesting. I do have a 13 perk crew in this tank. This crew has gone for entire E5 line, they've gone for entire T57 line, and they also have been sitting a lot in the T34 and the Patriot. So they've been around, they've seen a lot of American vehicles, but E5 is definitely the kind of the cream of the crop in terms of American heavies. Not much more I can say. The general tactics, I'm not even that great of a player, but and I don't have these kind of games too often. But what I notice when I do well, like what is the common theme in the games that I do well in? It's being able to adjust your position based on where you have weak spots. Don't lemming rush, but at the same time don't overcommit to the same area. If there's 2 tanks and you know that the enemies are going to come that way, but there's only 2 tanks, don't be that 3rd tank that's not going to change. What you should do, in fact, you should position yourself where you can overlook that area and do some long range damage while also providing support for those 2 tanks holding that line. So again, this game is mostly about being in the first part of the game, in the first maybe 2-3 minutes, being kind of trying to be proactive and trying to put yourself in the best position, and then the rest of the game is being reactive. You know, where the enemy is, what is their you know, where are they located, what tanks they're engaging, which directions they're going, where they're going to be, where they can potentially be, how much damage can they do to you. Those kind of factors become really important in the later games, in the later stages of the game. So again, staying alive, paying attention to the minimap is the most important thing to this game, and the most important skill is knowing where everyone is, knowing where everyone can be, and where should you be in that scenario. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and until next time.